Okay, yes. So today I'm happy to be here to talk to you about one of our projects that I'm particularly passionate about because it helps individuals to fulfill their personal goals, create a safe space for them, and help them to achieve a lot in life. And the project is Visuals for Gender. And how are we telling evidence-based, gender-based violence story? Currently in Ghana and in other places, this is how the story of gender-based violence is being told. So on the 5th of July, 2022, the news agency Pan-African Vision reported that a 10-year-old class 3 kid girl was raped. And normally when this news comes around, you see that it's reported as a single news item. It's not connected to the many other gender-based violence cases that happens across the globe. And the same way, just last month, 2022, a woman and a 6-year-old daughter gang raped in a moving car after accepting a gift. This is how the story of gender-based violence is reported in our news item. And so for us at Mobile Web Ghana and a technology company, we keep asking ourselves, I mean, it's good to be disturbed about a single item, but the fact of the issue is that these items are connected to many other gender-based violence cases that have happened either in the past or that is currently happening. So visuals for gender. So we thought that, look, how do we contribute as a technology company to this issue happening across the globe? How do we connect the dots? How do we tell the story in a more holistic manner, bring it to the view of policymakers, people in the value chain of gender-based violence? And how do we present this in a way that will make people see the essence of what is happening and the havoc or what it is causing to society? And so we all know this is not the new statistics, like 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner abuse. And globally, 7% of women have been sexually assaulted by someone other than a partner. So we all know about these statistics. 200 million women have experienced FG, female genital mutilation across the globe. We all know these statistics. And sometimes it feels like, oh, it's just reading about it and little or very small or nothing is being done about the issue. All these statistics, every day, every now and then, we read it when there are events, when there are issues related to gender-based violence. And so we thought about working with the government agency, which is DOFSU. It's an agency based in Ghana, and then take data from several years, from any data they have on gender-based violence, look at the data set and see how we can tell some data story from this statistics. So Visuals for Gender project is an initiative that we seek to equip citizens, policymakers, civil society organizations to understand gender-based issues using both dynamic and static visualization. The goal is to highlight critical gender-based issues in society, share with citizens, policymakers, and then also teach journalists how they can holistically tell the story. Like the 3-year-old girl who was raped, like the woman and the 6-year-old girl who was raped. Is there a way that journalists can tell this story differently by linking it to similar stories that have happened in the past? What difference will it make? Will it cause any change? Will it stir up something in policy? Will it really strike the heart of someone to say, no, this must not go on? This is not only the single case that has happened in July. This has happened in August, has happened in May, has happened several years. And this must not go on as it is, than just putting the story out there in a single fold manner. So when we started off, we started by mapping out all the people in the ecosystem or all the people working on gender-based violence. We really wanted to collaborate with all these civil society organizations, journalists. We mapped along the value chain, civil society organizations, developers who are interested in gender-based violence. How can we bring all these people together along the line to be able to help us make sure that the story is connected to many other dots that is happening across the country? And so first of all, we said the first thing we have to do, we have a technology capacity. We can develop visualizations, we can do infographics, we can do other things. How can we equip others to be able to connect the dots when it comes to gender-based violence? And so our main goal is to empower, and also build capacity. And we also did this for the government agency, Ghana Police Unit for Domestic Violence and Victim Support Units. We sent a collaboration letter to them, and they accepted. They sent people to various training programs to also build their capacity in this regard. But our focus in building capacity is to ensure that, look, stories are not being told. Like, for instance, when DOFSU churns out data sets on gender-based violence, it should be able to do simple infographics, simple visualizations, so that people can see the magnitude of the problems we are dealing with. And so we build capacity of journalists, capacity of CSOs, people working on gender-based violence, and also girls and teachers as well, because they are all involved in the ecosystem that we are trying to build. And advocacy, we felt that, look, we have an ideal project in mind. This is how we want to do this project. We have passion to do it. We feel like, look, we want to empower girls. We have resource people, we have psychologists, we work with psychologists, we work with the police unit, we work with different people. And we're thinking, look, how can we also get additional evidence of what is happening? We've gotten a secondary data from DOFSU about the number of people that have reported different cases, defilement, rape, assault, different cases. Now let's go to our girls, let's talk to our girls, let's have a forum with them. So we went with this particular school. It was really an interesting discussion we had. We were initially in a school, we were in a classroom having a discussion, and one girl mentioned that she was raped by her mother's driver. And when she told her mom said, "You are a sports girl. Why did you do this?" And we all wept. I mean, it was like a safe space. And so when we had lengthy discussions, people were sharing if they were in a pool, how they were harassed in the pool. So when our time was up, and they said they were going to use the classroom, and the girl said, "No, they will follow us." So they followed us. They said, let's sit outside. So we came outside and we sat on the floor and we were discussing. So the goal is to also empower, and the girls were so excited that we came to their school. So we reached out to schools, girls who were in various schools, and we had a lot of information from them. They shared their personal stories. We measured their self-esteem, self-confidence, those who are affected by gender-based violence. And we also embarked on educating them, as well as also their teachers separately. We were not missing the teachers with the girls. We wanted a safe space, so we were separating them always. And as I mentioned, it was interesting working with CSOs and NGOs who were in the space of gender-based violence. And as most of us can attest to the fact that they collect the data, that they are passionate about their work, but they may not have what it takes to just use Excel or Tableau to simply visualize the data, to be able to bring out the exact picture that will be able to cause a change or enhance policy change in one way or the other. So we taught them how they can use either Excel, simple data visualize, Canva, simple data visualization tools in their work, and they were so excited about it. And we also seek to use these visualizations not only to empower girls, teachers, CSOs, but how do we influence policy using these data sets or using these visualizations that we have? So we brought some policy stakeholders together to be able to take a look at the data that we have and look at what is happening for us to kickstart some policy discussion around it. So we were able to reach out to 13 schools with our programs. Some were on campus, some were in our office, some were in other places, and over 2,000 students were reached. We trained about 90 teachers. Teachers were brought to our offices. We trained them with the statistics, and some of them were already dealing with the issue of gender-based violence. Some were tackling those that students trust. They could easily go to them and tell them the issues that they have. But most of them didn't even know what to do after they have been told or after students have reported the issues to them. So we gave them hotlines. We brought, so for instance, this is Deputy Commissioner of Police. She was there to give them information about what's the next steps to do when students report to you. And we also, as you mentioned, we train about 30 CSOs and journalists in this domain. And the beauty of it is that we develop a dashboard. When you go to our website, visualsforgender.org, as you can see, we develop a dashboard of domestic violence cases in Ghana. You can do comparative analysis from 2014 to 2018, as at the time that we had the data sets from DOVSU. You can look at rape cases across board. You can also look at defilement cases. You can look at the trend analysis of those cases, carnal knowledge of female idiots, compulsion of marriage, and when you go, it's a dynamic dashboard. So when you go and select a specific year and then the offenses, you could have a visualization of the cases across board. And we also joined a consortium of other CSOs to draft policies to advocate against gender-based violence. This was led by one of the CSOs, and we are part of it. And the beauty of it is that we also organized hackathon. You know, the thing about techies is that when they meet, they are always looking at ways they can use tech to solve problems. Even though it's an enabler, it's not an end in itself. We had a lot of maps, we had a lot of other visualizations, interesting visualizations that came out of the hackathon. And these were our partners for the program. We worked with the United States Embassy in Ghana. We also worked with DOVSU. We worked with IPAS. We worked with Business and Financial Times, Curious Minds, and Tinka Media Houses, Amplify Change on the project across board. And data and its importance. Data, as we all know, is very important when it comes to gender-based violence. Like I mentioned from the beginning of my presentation, when it comes to gender-based violence, these cases are reported in isolated manner. A baby is raped, and then is escalated in the media, and everybody say, oh, why is this happening? But it's not connected to the bigger picture. So what we are doing is to see how data can help, data visualization and analysis can help us to connect to the bigger picture for people to actually know what is happening on the ground when it comes to gender-based violence. And as we know, not almost like half of the cases of GBV are not reported. So it means that the reported cases, if they're also not well properly analyzed and visualized, we might not get the meaningful insights that we are seeking. And data is used to illustrate a need. So when it comes to gender-based violence, what is the need in the country when it comes to gender-based violence? If we are able to properly analyze and visualize the data, how can data reduce uncertainty? Like when we talk about gender-based violence, it's easy to say, oh, this is just one of case, oh, Ghana, there is no gender-based violence, so we respect each other, we are cool, we don't do people, it's just one of cases. But analyzing the data and appropriately visualizing it can reduce these uncertainties, and people can see the true picture of what is happening on the ground. It's also used to inform the public and track progress of what has been done across board. And as I mentioned, with our dashboard, you can see when you visualize, when you go to the dashboard visualsforgender.org, you can also know what is happening across, but especially from 2014 to 2018, what are the trends when it comes to gender-based violence, when it comes to rape, when it comes to assault, when it comes to other forms of offenses, when it comes to gender-based violence. And then data-driven advocacy. I think that in this era of digital age, we cannot do the work of gender-based violence without actually doing data-driven advocacy. It's like saying you want to go to school, but you don't want to pass your exams, or you don't want to write exams, right? Because data helps to bring evidence on board. Data helps to actually show evidence of what has been done, what is happening on the ground. So using data as a tool to argue for and push for and support and defend a cause or a policy is really the way to go when it comes to gender-based violence. Even when we talk about online gender-based violence, a lot is happening. And I think that NGOs and CSOs have a role to play, even collecting data on online violence, online gender-based violence, bullying that is happening online. There is a huge opportunity in actually collecting the data and looking at what the data is telling us. And then we can appropriately develop specific interventions for what is happening. I quite remember when we brought the girls in our space, and some of them said, one person said, look, I was in a public transport, and all of a sudden there was a guy who was watching porn, and all of a sudden he said that, look, can you watch it with me? And he said at that moment, I didn't know what to do. I mean, especially if the person is in certain cultures where the person is older than you, you may not. But analyzing this, taking this information, analyzing it, connecting it to other things that is happening across the globe, across the country, will help us to argue for and push for and support and defend why we are doing what we are doing and why it should be done the way that we are doing it. And data-driven advocacy is a powerful tool for documenting and for monitoring, reporting, and evidence. And as I mentioned, in this era of digital age, a lot is happening both online and also offline. And data is the only way for us to document, monitor, and report, and also provide evidence to support what is happening. In some cultures, if you say this is happening, they'll ask you, what do you mean this is happening? Show us an evidence that this is happening. And of course, if you show one evidence, it's not enough. You must show cumulative, calculated, collected evidence to be able to support the work that you do. And importance of data-driven advocacy. As I've mentioned in the previous slides, it can help to create a powerful imagery to convey the information that we want people to grasp. I remember when we showed some of the statistics, some of the infographics to people, then it became clearer to both people working in the ecosystem, journalists, and then NGOs and CSOs, why they need to do a data-driven or use simple infographics to actually tell their story. Because then there is a bigger picture, there is a bigger evidence to support what the work that you're doing, other than just saying, oh, I'm working in this society and I'm working in this community and this is what is happening. But if there is an evidence to superimpose that information on other sources of data that you collect, then your evidence becomes great. And data-driven advocacy also helps to determine which areas to channel advocacy efforts and which stakeholders to target, for instance. So for instance, we have in Ghana, we have the Cybersecurity Bureau. So if there are enough cases about online gender-based violence, cybersecurity, anything happening in the domain of cybersecurity, it is the way to go. If there is enough evidence to support that, we need policy. in the area of cyberbullying and other things, then we know that this is the area we must go to. And it helps to achieve widespread sustainable change. Data hardly lies. Unless the data is not collected properly, unless the data is not manipulated properly. But once there is data, there is enough evidence, you can achieve the change that you really want to achieve, even though it is not easy, especially if you want policy change. It's going to take a long time, but definitely the evidence is there and it will help to push the agenda that you want to push. And it also helps to defend communities from adverse policy changes. It strengthens NGOs and expands democratic space by encouraging citizens to participate in all levels of policymaking. And if we all know that, oh, the reason why we must be involved in gender-based violence is that the evidence shows that 9 out of 20 girls in a specific school experience gender-based violence. I mean, we will all be alarmed. We know that, look, this data is critical. Once it's happening in one school, it will happen in the other school, and gradually it will creep to our doorsteps. So everybody would get up and get involved in making sure that change is effected. And when we brought the teachers together, I mean, one of the things that we experienced, like most of them do not even know what to do. They like, oh, well, once a while they get cases of gender-based violence and they just, okay. And some of them take the case to DOFSU if it becomes serious, especially like in one case, the teacher said the girl reported that she was being raped by either a relative or something, and the teacher was bold enough to take the case to DOFSU to report the case. But other teachers, they would just not do any, they don't know what to do, they don't have resources, they don't have information as to what to do. If there is enough evidence to show that, look, these cases are happening in our various schools, then there will be enough, how do you call it, information around as to what you should do when students or when teachers get hold of this information, what they should do to safeguard our students. And these are some of the data visualizations we developed during the project. And so you can see these domestic violence cases in a specific district. And so the data is, you can manipulate the data in different, how do you call it, in different forms. We had the age, we had assault cases, we had causing harm, defilement, rape cases in a specific district. So you can visualize the data in that district and see that in this district, what is happening when it comes to gender-based violence. You can see that there are so many assault cases, and then followed by defilement cases, and then causing harm and rape cases as well. And the main, how do you call it, victims are female. About 94% are females when it comes to these assault cases. And the top 5 domestic violence cases in Ghana from 2014 to 2016. So the data we received, this data was received from DOFSU during our project, and we can see that still assault cases are still high, about 15,000 assault cases. And then defilement cases are 3,000, assault 3,220, non-maintenance cases 13,000. And then rape cases are 800 across from 2014 to 2016. The treatment of abortion cases, from how abortion cases were treated. So we can see that the relationship between the cases, we can see abortion cases, there were male suspects were 69, female suspects were 21. We can see from different ages, we can see the total cases, And we can also see the arrests that were made. 44 males were arrested from different, in 2014, in 2015, 46 of them, and in 2016, 12 of them were arrested. This is still some of the visualizations we did. Total number of cases reported. So, and then you can dive down to the male victim, female suspect, male suspect. So we have attempted defilement cases here. We have attempted rape, carnal knowledge, and we have unnatural carnal knowledge. We have indecent assaults and different cases across board. So you can see that in all, about 2,152 cases were reported. And then rape, these are the rape cases. The highest number is 758, followed by indecent assault, attempted rape cases, and other forms of offenses. So how do we tell evidence-based GBV story? I mean, these are just the infographics I showed. They are static infographics. When you go to our website, you could get a more dynamic visualization telling different stories. But how do we tell evidence-based gender-based violence stories? I mean, we gather data primarily through primary and secondary sources. So as I mentioned, we are working with DOFS. We wanted our data to be trusted. And since the government has a body responsible for collecting data sets related to gender-based violence, we wanted to really work with them. Information, what is happening on the ground when it comes to GBV in various junior high schools and senior high schools, some selected senior high schools in Ghana. And then we compared the data that we had from the junior high school to what we have. And we noticed that all the cases that the girls have reported to us, those cases were not reported to the government agency. So those cases were not part of the data that we had at hand. So it gave us really an interesting data to do comparative analysis with what we had, what was reported at least, and to see the trend between what people are reporting and what people are not reporting. Data analysis and visualization. Data gathered, we gathered data, we cleaned the data, and then we analyzed the data. As I mentioned, we use various tools to do that, but primarily we were using 3 tools. We were using Excel, especially for the capacity building. It was important. We had, we could teach R, we could teach Python, we could teach more advanced data mining and other things. But we wanted to show, especially journalists and civil society organizations, that look, analyzing data related to gender-based violence shouldn't be hectic. If you're just a journalist that wants to churn out data immediately and fast, as some of them, because the speed of reporting the data is also equally important to the journalists. I've gotten the data, I want to be the first to report the data. This is not the time for me to start coding how to analyze and bring out other data. But we told them that, look, sometimes it's very easy to even just do Excel analysis. Just put the data in an Excel and just choose a chart that is well suited for your report. And it's very easy. So we chose simple tools like Microsoft Excel and the Tableau for those who wants to do a little bit advanced. Even for people who were not programmers, they hadn't used Tableau before. They were so excited about it, and that they could learn how to just use the basics of Tableau for their own analysis, especially for the CSOs and then NGOs that came to the training program. And to add to that, Canva has been a great resource for us to use to build the capacity of especially journalists. And we found that, they were, and now people could download Canva on their phone, do simple analysis on their phone, infographics on their phone, and just choose a template, edit, and just use in their reportage. So these were the 3 basic tools that we used during our capacity building programs. And we also used documentary or videos. We interviewed a lot of students, a lot of girls who shared their testimonies with us. They shared their gender-based violence cases with us. And we didn't share those videos for privacy sake. We just wanted to document some of those testimonies. And like you can mention videos of survivors. So we did simple videos like this. I don't know if the sound is coming. We did simple videos like this on social media. And we shared them across board. Yeah, so videos like this were very helpful, and then we shared them online and within our community, just for people to know what is happening when it comes to gender-based violence in the country. So our social media advocacy, whilst we were doing this online, offline, we were also heavily on social media as well. I mentioned we went to various schools to do advocacy, and we brought journalists and other people in-house as well to build their capacity. We were also heavily on social media. We were doing cards, online campaigns, dialogues and conversations with people. We did Twitter chats, we did test cards, and then we were also sharing our visualizations online. These are some of the online campaigns that we did, Twitter chat, and then some of the infographics or the test cards we shared online as well. Yes, this is still some of our visuals for gender chats that we had. We had it with experts in gender-based violence, journalists, NGOs, victims who were willing to just come forward and share their stories with the public as well. So in telling GBV story, our main aim is to be factual. We also want to be ethical. We want to be objective. We want to stay relevant. We want to identify solutions and not problems. We don't want to do any blame shifting. We just want to have an open mind in doing this. And why were we doing this? We felt that, look, when we had the project in mind, our main goal is to work with people in the ecosystem, everyone in the ecosystem, because we feel that, look, the problem of gender-based violence cannot be solved by one civil society organization or NGO or one organization. So further, let's collaborate with all the stakeholders along the line to be able to achieve the objective that we want to achieve. We may not be able to, solve the problem now, but we'll be able to shift some mindset, contribute to policy discussion, and change and contribute to empowering some girls to be able to advance in their lives. And I think one of the testimonies from one girl said that it's through your training that I was able to pass my exams. I learned how to overcome my trauma of being harassed by my father. And it's true that I was able to pass my exams, and now I'm in the university. And as Alexander Smith mentioned, a man does not plant a tree for himself. We didn't do this because we felt that, oh, we are doing this. It's the main reason why we engage people along the ecosystem. He plants a tree for prosperity. And we are hoping that posterity would actually continue the work that we are doing, as we have involved other NGOs and CSOs and the teachers and all the people in the ecosystem. They would also pick it up. They will have gotten the skills to be able to tell gender-based violence story differently, to empower their society, to build their capacity within their own organization, and ensure that the issue of or the menace of gender-based violence is reduced across board. I mean, it's something that has lived with us. We can't say through our work, we are eradicating it totally. But we believe that this tree we've planted, it will remain for society and also for posterity, and to also build on it. And so thank you. This brings me to the end of my presentation, and I hope that you've learned more about the project. You can follow the project Bishops for Gender. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Thank you. I will pause for some.
That was really fantastic. Thank you, Florence, so much for going through all of that work. Yeah, that's Linda's emojis, lots of claps. You all know that I'm going to have a lot of questions, but I'm very interested in what others who might be working in or thinking about working in this space, if there's any questions that you want to jump in with. Okay, well, I've typed a question just to start it off. I've typed a question in the chat, Florence, and it's about the quality of the data. So can you speak to, you know, the experience that you have of actually getting access to this data? How, you know, do you see this as a process of trying to improve it? Because I think we've learned that a lot of the reporting around violence and gender violence especially gets skewed. Sometimes the mechanisms for how to even report are not great, or when people do come forward with a report, it gets questioned. And so do you have a sense of the scope and the scale of the problem, or how to improve sort of the quality of data? Or do you use proxies, other ways of saying, well, you know, there's only maybe 10 official reports, but we know because of hospital rates going up, or are people bringing their, you know, not coming into school, that that we know that people that this is actually a problem. It always happens around this kind of event or this kind of time. Do you have any other proxies that you use or that you're thinking of using for this?
And so the data, especially the data, we are hoping to improve the system of how the data is collected. I think one of the data sets we received from, I think, one of the agencies, when we did our analysis, we noticed that there were a lot of missing links. The data wasn't properly collected. And so one of the goals or one of the capacity building we did for that organization is to also show them how they can collect the data in a way that is also machine readable, and I mean, to reduce the errors that are involved. And the abortion data was given to us by IPAS, one of the CSO, civil society organizations working in gender-based violence. So they collected that data set and gave it to us to visualize as part of the consortium for them. So that is it. So there's some of the process or some of the other mechanism or medium that we are using to collect the data is either through civil society organizations and also from the government as well. I don't know if I answered your question. You are on mute. You are on mute.
Me on mute. I think the question that I have, it's helpful to understand. So one of the big issues in gender-based violence and fighting it is being able to actually get the information and share it out. Sort of the first thing you said is, they can't say, oh, this happened just once, so this happened last week. And you can say, no, it's look how many times it's happened, even this month alone. So getting that really good quality data is important. And it sounds like part of your process is to visualize what they have so that you can show them how kind of messed up and broken the data is, how many gaps there are, and then you work with them on digital transformation. Is it fair to understand that it kind of takes that first step of working with them to show them how many gaps there are in their data before they're willing to have a sort of engagement around here's how you could collect better data? Do they have
Yes, it's very important to take that first steps. Or sometimes people hold on to the data, especially with other agencies, they don't want to give it out. And they think that, no, this is our data. But if just you get a bit of the data, you can show them what you can do, evidence of what you can use that data for, then they are more willing to open up. One of the agencies, government agencies we visited for data set, it took us like months to get the data. We wrote letters, we did legwork, we visited, and then we demonstrated what we can use the data for. So it's also very important that during this work, people see or know or evidence, like you can show them, look, this is what you can do with this data set. In 15 minutes, you can use Canva to just change this data into something interesting for people to easily understand. And that was really helpful. Yes. And for the NGOs and civil society organizations, I think the hackathon was 2 days. And I think the next day they were coming and inviting their colleagues to attend because, I mean, the training was practical. They brought their data sets and we demonstrated what they themselves can use the data to do. And it was very helpful in the first initial process.
Can I ask you, I realize I'm going a little bit more on the data transformation, and please, anybody who has a question, jump in. Was that 2-day training, did you feel like that was the right amount to give them a sense of you can make an impact and therefore bring in these kinds of practices? Is that a sort of a useful timeline? Like is the use of hackathons over 2 days, let's get you in, let's get you a little bit more comfortable with digital transformation, or where it's just understanding data quality, rather than trying to say, all right, you need to go through a 6-month or a 2-year training, you need to overhaul sort of your whole team. Is that sort of 2-day timeline something that you found has been helpful to sort of build a pathway?
No, I wouldn't say yes.
Right.
I think it was I just want to be frank. I think it was just a teaser kind of thing, and just to show people what can be done. And I think that during projects, I think projects are structured in a way, it's like a mechanical kind of thing sometimes. And okay, you've structured that you want to do 2-day hackathon, and from hackathon you do this. And I think that I mean, hackathons are just like teasers. If you really want to do a more in-depth capacity building, get like results, and also because we spread ourselves kind of a bit thin, like, well, we were training teachers, we were training, if we were focusing solely on NGOs or transforming the NGO sector or people working in gender-based violence, you would have allocated enough time for that. So I would say yes.
Yeah, I do have a question. Thank you, Florence, for your presentation. Great learning about the wonderful work you're doing in Ghana. You mentioned that, yeah, the data that you have also has like a lot of gaps, like not all the gender-based violence cases are reported. So like there is a lot that goes unreported, and I was wondering whether you have looked at other sources where, you know, victims do report cases. For example, I know like the Me Too movement, there's so many women who come up and speak up and share stories of gender-based violence on Twitter. And I think there might be also other sources like on social media where people like share stories who are victims. I was wondering if this is like that I have looked at and tried to visualize and also try to compare it like with like the data that is in the hands of government, and just compare like are there like more reports that come up from like social media sites like Twitter? Yeah, just wondering if that's something you have considered.
Uh,
Thank you. Unmute, Florence.
yes, yes, I heard you. Sorry. Yes, I think that because we were focusing on Ghana, our main objective was to do the offline analysis with the girls that we trained, for instance. And so, and the Me Too campaign was great, and it was coming from different countries. It was exciting. It was great. We looked at it in another form, like just citing it or retweeting it, or but not to do analysis of that. But we actually did analysis of the girls. We were, like we mentioned, we had over 2,000 girls. We were measuring their self-esteem, we were measuring their confidence level. We are also measuring their experience, gender-based violence, domestic violence. But so we were focusing on, look, if whilst we are in the room and we can see you physically, can you tell us what you've experienced when it comes to GBV? And that was really an interesting analysis for us, like gathering that data, taking a dive deep into it, and looking at what is reported. Like in one school, I mean, girls reported being harassed by boys in the pool and other things. And that data was, we didn't get even that data on the government data set. Like there was no offense like that. You know, so it was really an interesting analysis for us. But it's an interesting suggestion. Hopefully, at one point in time, we can do a more holistic analysis of what's happening. Jeffrey, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, yes, you did. Thank you, Florence.
Okay. If there are no other immediate questions, if you all will kind of maybe indulge me, I will try to run a Menti because, you know, we're hoping to get some good feedback from you all on these discussions, these presentations, and workshops. So if you have the capacity to do so, if you can go to menti.com and then type in this code that is on here, 1909 4941. See if I can drop it in for everyone. And thank you, Jeffrey, for that suggestion. So I just have two quick questions on here, and it's just trying to understand, you know, was it, Florence gave a lot of great information and great detail. So what about it surprised you, would you say? And let's see if anybody has the ability to get to this website. And then you type in the code 4941 for anybody who's not there. That was surprising. The data was bad. Okay, guys, so leave this on for like another 30 seconds. You can also feel free to just shout it out or type it in the chat if it's easier. The number of cases. Yeah, I thought that was surprising too. Yeah, what was the statistic that Florence shared of the number of people who'd experienced violence? That was just such a common one. Men being victims, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think this surprised me. Okay, interest of time, let me see if I can move this on to the next one. Okay, insightful. Probably they weren't surprised that it was insightful, Florence, but that's what stood out to them for sure. My opening, revealing. Thank you all. Thank you for taking the time to share. Yeah, I think the defilement case, Florence, is really sticking with people. So this story. Okay. Oh, sorry for this. Okay, so this is where we are now. Yeah, the stories is really what stuck with people. So we have that 3 times. So it's important with any sort of data work. We can get so into the data, but being able to tell the story of the work is as we all know, so important, but it's important to repeat. Okay, thank you all. And then the last question is, are there topics, issues that you'd like us to share in the future? We tend to go with responses here on either individuals that you would like to hear from, or organizations. Or so, for example, we got the request for beneficial ownership and got a great training last month on open ownership. So if there's something that you'd like to learn more about, please share. Madhavan, thank you for joining. So let's see. I would say, so if you're on the Menti, if you just type next question, it'll bring you to this page. So for me, I would like, Mame, thank you for joining us. Access to grants, sure. The environment, the data playbook. Yeah, so we'll try to get Heather Lesson in for a data playbook. I would ask on the access to grants. I mean, there's just so many resources of here's a grant open. Is it more about you want a list of the grants that are open, or we've given a presentation, a training before about how to apply for data grants? So. And if there's any organizations that you think do this work particularly well that you'd like to hear from, or you think we should model, please share. What grants are open? Okay. These are great. Thank you all. Okay. It's the, at least in the East Coast, it's the top of the hour, depending on where you're in the world. Might be hit the half hour, but for most of you, it's the top. So I'm going to close it. Thank you all for joining today. As always, Florence, thank you for a brilliant presentation and for all the good work that you're doing. Please check out the visuals for gender. Please share this work out. Anything that we can do to support your work going forward beyond the sharing visuals for gender?
I will connect with you, but in the meantime, we would like to collaborate with other people working on gender-based violence. I mean, share ideas. The most important thing is linking with each other, and then also seeing areas where we can all collaborate and work on this.
Perfect.
Yes, that's the most important thing for us. If there are civil society organizations in other countries, if we can analyze data, superimpose the data and see what is happening in other countries, what we can learn, what we can derive from it, that will really be very helpful. It's more about learning and collaboration for us as officials.
Wonderful. Okay. We'll leave it at that. Thank you all for joining us today, and see you back here in a month.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Eric, for joining.